Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Verhofstadt, former Belgian Prime Minister, is now in charge of the Brexit talks for the European Parliament. He is a hate figure for many Leavers. Nigel Farage, for instance, called his appointment a declaration of war against Britain. This week, I went to meet him in Brussels and asked whether the EU actually wants a free trade deal with Britain.
What we want as the European Parliament is an association agreement. And in this association agreement, there will be a free trade deal inside. Because we think that the future relationship with Britain needs to be broader than only trade and economics.
So you do want a free trade agreement as part of that. So there should be no real problem in achieving that, given that our regulations are pretty much similar.
May I rectify a little bit? We want, in fact, more than a free trade. We should like to have, for example, Britain still in the single market, Britain member of a European economic area, Britain member of a customs union, and so on.
But the trouble with your vision is it's basically Britain staying inside the EU but without a vote.
Now, that's more the question about transition, what you're talking about.
Let's talk about transition.
They will talk about transition, I hope so, in the coming weeks. And transition is mainly the continuation of what we call the existing rules, the existing policies, without having a say. That's true, because Britain will not, in the transition, will not be longer present in the European Parliament, in the European Commission, in the European Court of Justice, and in the European Council.
See, Boris Johnson says that it would be intolerable and undemocratic for us to have to accept new rules, new changes in the rules, without even being in the room while they're made.
But we have not decided for Britain to leave, and we have not. It is Britain who have requested the transition period.
In effect,
it's not we who ask for it.
In effect, your answer is tough.
Why it's tough? It's normal when there is a transition. So we are not against the transition.
Okay.
I think a transition is even necessary, because you need a period necessary to discuss and to negotiate the future relationship. But it's normal that in a transition you simply continue the existing rules and the existing policies.
A big problem at the moment in the transition talks is about the free movement of people.
Yep.
Now, Theresa May says that it's not the same for somebody to come from the continent of Europe and settle in Britain during the transition period, already knowing that Britain is leaving the EU. That's a different life choice, if you like, from somebody who joined before we decided to leave. So why should people coming during the transition period have all the rights of people who came before?
Yeah, because transition is simply the continuation of the existing situation. And
with respect, that's a bureaucratic answer.
No, that's not a bureaucratic answer. I will give you the answer. It's not acceptable for us that rules will continue without change for financial services, for goods, for whatever other business, and only for the citizens, their situation will change. That is penalizing citizens. Why should everything continue for services, for goods, for imports, exports, and only for the citizens? They will be worse off. That is for us not acceptable. We even not want to talk about it.
But they know what the situation is. They know Britain is leaving, and then they still want to...
But Britain asked for a transition. Britain needs a period from now on, let's say, until the end of 2020, to prepare itself. So then it's normal. But the rights and the duties will be the same in transition. That counts also for the UK nationals living on the continent.
Theresa May says that her position is a red line. You are absolutely the same. Our position is a red line. There is no meeting of minds on this. It is possible the entire transition period will fail. What happens then?
If there is no transition, then you have automatically the withdrawal of Britain on the 29th of March of next year. What the British government can do is that they prepare the new system for after 2020, but they cannot seriously say, look, all the rules stays in place, only for the citizens there is a new situation. That's not very serious.
Let's move, if we can, to the end state, the final agreement.
It goes fast.
It goes
in our interview it goes fast, but in reality it will take years. Yeah.
Is it at all possible that by the time that we formally leave, in March next year, there will be a free trade agreement? Is that possible?
I think what is possible by the 29th of March of next year, if everybody agrees with it, British Parliament, European Parliament, will be the withdrawal agreement. Inside that withdrawal agreement also an agreement on the transition, for example, of 2 years, the end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021. And the third thing what will be possible is an annex, a political declaration describing more or less in detail, I should say, what the future relationship will be. And then we will use the transition period to clarify this political declaration in an international agreement. So that are the three things: withdrawal agreement, inside the withdrawal agreement, the transition deal on transition, and an annex, a political declaration describing in detail already, because everybody has an interest to do that in detail, not to have misunderstandings afterwards, describing that future relationship.
Now, it's fairly clear, it's not completely clear yet to us, what Theresa May is going to ask for. David Davies described it to me as Canada plus, plus, plus. And what he meant by that was a free trade deal, no tariffs, no non-tariff barriers for goods, cars and so forth, but special agreements on things like financial services. That's what they're going to ask for. And again, is that not reasonable to do that kind of special bespoke arrangement?
Yeah, but that will not be the outcome of this negotiation. That cannot be the outcome.
Why not?
No, the outcome will be, there can be not a type of saying, oh, this is interesting, that we like, this is not interesting for us, we dislike and we don't want it. What will be in that part of the association agreement, we will see. Financial passports will not be there anymore, because that's the actual system. You need to be a part of the single market to have that. So that will be a far more difficult negotiation than simply to say, oh, we like financial services, we put it in, we don't like this sector, and we put it out. But that will be for the future, that will be not now.
There's disagreements on the European side, the continental side as well about this. The Italian Prime Minister said, for instance, it would be unthinkable not to have financial services as part of the agreement.
Yeah, but there will be certainly something about financial services, but there will be also something about regulatory equivalence then, because what we don't want is that with this whole agreement, we establish a type of a financial center that is competing with the continent not in a serious way, by every time lowering taxes, lowering the type of rules, so that we create a competitive disadvantage for the European financial services. Yeah. We want a level playing field for that. So that's the key in all this. There has to be a level playing field in this, and no competitive advantage, neither for the Europeans and not for the British side.
There are a lot of people in Britain who want to diverge in some areas and carry on converging in others. But that's what you allowed for Japan, that's what you allowed for Canada.
Yeah, but there is a big difference. With the Japan trade agreement and with the Canadian trade agreement, what we try to do is to converge. While what Britain is asking for is, is a request for divergence in a number of fields. And that we don't want. We understand that, okay, Britain wants to diverge in a number of fields and regain its sovereignty, but they have to take then also the consequences of it. If you diverge, yeah, it will be...
Sounds a little punitive.
No, it's not punitive. It's normal. It's your decision. It's a decision of the British people. To go out and to like divergence, and that's the big difference.
So I'm Theresa May now, or I'm Boris Johnson now, and I come to you and I say Canada plus plus plus. You say no chance. Is that right?
No, I'm not saying that. Everything is depending on the red lines of the British side. I say single market is the best solution for the British industry and the British economy, but the British government doesn't want that, because the red line is no freedom of movement of people. I say the second best option for Britain is a customs union. But Britain says, no, it's not possible because we want to regain all competence on trade policies.
Yes, yeah.
My third proposal is, okay, let's look then maybe into one or other association agreement. And maybe there will be also opposition by the British government say, yeah, but that implies the role of the European Court of Justice, and we don't like the European Court of Justice. So a lot depends not on the European side, a lot depends on the red lines that are put on the table by the British.
Is there a big difference between you and Michel Barnier on any of this, or do you think alike?
No, the specificity of the European Parliament is that we're going to be very keen on the issue of the citizens' rights. And we are very worried, I can tell you, and I want, if you give me the opportunity to say that to the British public, very worried about this. It's going to be a bureaucratic nightmare in the system for the EU citizens living in Britain and for the UK nationals living on the continent. We want a system for the EU citizens for the future who is very simple. A simple declaration by them has to be sufficient to continue to have their rights.
Can I ask what happens if, perhaps over this issue, the European Parliament votes down the deal, or the British Parliament votes down the deal? What happens if the deal's voted down?
Then there is a Brexit on the 29th of March without any arrangement. That is what is happening. But I presume that is happening, I presume, I have only a small experience as a politician in Belgium and in Europe, so not in Britain. But I presume that if that is happening, for example, UK Parliament voting down the deal, there will be, I presume, a crisis in British politics. I presume maybe an election, maybe after that election a new government, and maybe a new position of that new government on Brexit. So I call it, may I call it like that, unknown territory? That's unknown territory.
Mr. Verhofstadt, thanks very much for talking to us. Thank you.
I've been